Proof of Life. Where the light floods, the last of the heroes shine in a long-standing battle against proof. It's anger drenched in years of unrelenting promise that life is a carousel of broken glass that glints and flickers under our blood-soaked feet, crying for us to dance once more.
That's the voice of Sharon Zohar reading the title poem of the new anthology she recently finished editing. It's called Proof of Life. The book came out almost exactly 1 month ago to coincide with the commemoration of the October 7th attacks. Zohar only authored the first poem in the collection. The rest are by Jewish poets from around the globe, all reflecting on life since October 7th. The authors are from the US, Germany, Ireland, Israel, a whole tapestry of Jewish life laid out in verse. The project emerged in reaction to a previous one. Last January, Zohar started an organization called EnoughTO. Its goal, she said, was to restore the sense of peace, unity, and civility to Toronto streets that was lost when the protests against Israel's military action in Gaza began last year. Zohar says that work required a kind of restrained neutrality, and she came out feeling less optimistic than when she went in. Poetry, in contrast, gave her the space to express her full, unvarnished truth, using art to capture the types of feelings that don't always fit into neat, balanced prose.
It just spilled out of me, the anger and the frustration and the fear and the sadness and the brokenness of our world to something that eventually came out to be some hope and regeneration. So that's why it was important to me for it to do it.
I'm Zach Kaufman, sitting in for Ellin Bessner. This is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Wednesday, November 6th, 2024. Welcome to the CJN Daily, a podcast of the Canadian Jewish News, and made possible in part by the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky-Gluskin Charitable Foundation.
This is an audition to be a cantor.
But I don't want to be a cantor.
I wasn't raised with any religion.
You're Jewish, though.
The heartbeat of community.
I welcome Sam into my community by first taking his foreskin and next showing him the beautiful Twister bagel.
Culturally Jewish is the only podcast covering the weird, wide world of independent Canadian Jewish art.
Listen to Culturally Jewish at the cjn.ca/culture or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sharon Zohar is a Toronto-based serial entrepreneur. She founded The Big Push, an all-female-led business accelerator, and Roundtable Resolutions, an organization that gathers thinkers and stakeholders to converse about a leading issue and facilitate them coming together to write an agreed-upon resolution. Editing the Proof of Life poetry collection was a passion project, and all proceeds from the book go to the OneFamily Fund, an Israeli-based nonprofit that provides assistance to Israeli victims of terror. It's not the first collection to touch on the subject. Back in August, a poetry chapbook called Light Through Trees was released in Israel in memory of Judith Weinstein Haggai, the Toronto-raised victim of the October 7th attacks on kibbutz near Uz. Weinstein was well known for her haikus, and she wrote the short poems throughout most of her adult life. She was a longtime member of Voices Israel, the group that put out the poetry book in her memory. Many people say that watching the news and world events can make them feel overwhelmed and helpless. But on the day that I'm recording this, millions of Americans are waiting in lines to cast their ballots and have a voice in the future of their country. In Israel, tens of thousands of protesters are flooding the streets and blocking highways in response to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu firing his defense minister Yoav Gallant. It's really something to behold. Instead of feeling helpless and broken, people around the world are taking action, making their voices heard, creating something new, whether it's through politics or protests or poetry. Ellin Bessner recently spoke with Sharon Zohar about editing the new Proof of Life poetry collection.
Sharon Zohar, welcome to the CJN Daily.
Thank you very much.
So on October 7th, your book officially launched. It's called Proof of Life. What motivated you to do a poetry anthology for October 7th?
Well, October 7th, like many people, I was just emboldened to do something. And It all began actually in a desire to start a grassroots movement, which I started with EnoughTO. And that particular movement was bringing people together and talk about civility within the streets of Toronto. And I had to become completely neutral and not really share my feelings about the war in Gaza or anything. And in attempting to pull this grassroots movement and bring people together, all I got was hate. And I was just overwhelmed by what was happening on the streets of Toronto that I turned to what I always know best, which is writing. And so I penned a poem. Like, I just let a poem just kind of slip out of me, and I felt so much better because it was the first time I could talk about my feelings without having to be this sort of neutral balance. And then I thought this would be a great opportunity for others. I imagine others would feel the same. So I reached out to an organization called OneFamily Fund, who focuses and supports people, the hostage families and those who've been suffering through terror in Israel. And why don't we do this project together and see if we can bring people from around the world, share their voices about their feelings of October 7th and the anti-Semitism and the rise of anti-Semitism around Canada and all over the world.
Go back to what you said earlier, please. You said you started this grassroots organization, which I remember because we did a little thing on it on the CJN Daily called Enough. What did you do? Just remind our listeners.
So we created a sticker campaign to begin with. And on the sticker campaign, it was a khamsa with the word enough on it. And we really just wanted to share with people the message that Toronto is our city, and we just want to create civility and have conversations that are not political in nature, just about cleaning up the streets and not having people jump on off of scaffolding or do some terrible, just angry, throwing Molotov cocktails or whatever it might be.
And ripping hostage posters, that was part of it too.
That was a huge part of it. That was a huge part of it. So we wanted to ensure that we put these stickers on, and we did a campaign across the city, and it was quite effective in the beginning, but then we realized this whole sticker campaign came from all sides, and people were, as you said, tearing down posters, and on top of our stickers, which were just about civility, we're putting stickers of free Hamas free Palestine, or all sorts of very negative remarks to our sticker campaign. But then we continued to push forward, and then we brought a community together to do a mural, sort of collective mural. And we're happy that the mural was actually finished and completed, and in fact hung in the city hall for a day and a half, because it was asked to be taken down afterwards, which is a whole other story.
No, I want to hear about that.
So we were promised that the actual mural would be up there for a month, and then it was shortened down to a week, and then by the time we finally got it up and running, it was literally one day. And they said that unfortunately there were other things that were more important, and that they couldn't hold the mural for much longer than the day. There were other different types of events that were going on, and it wasn't exactly termed what those events were, but we were asked to take it down.
Was this in the Rotunda?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. So what was the mural?
The mural was a collective event for people from all faiths coming together to paint a representation of our logo with the khamsa, with the enough, and in every little square, people put their sort of own little stamp on it. So it's brush strokes. It's called brush strokes of humanity or brush strokes of civility, and everyone had an opportunity to take a little piece of that.
So where is that now?
That currently is in my home, and it actually is a traveling piece that is going to go to universities. So we do have the University of Toronto who wants to hang it up, and that should happen. It was to happen early in September. It has not yet happened, but we are continuing to move forward and hoping that we can get it by the beginning of November. I'm interested in your feelings when you got so much hate, when you were just trying to get people to just stop screaming at each other. What lessons has that taught you, and how do you feel about that today, a year later? I've always been one to talk about open dialogue, and I always believe that there's always a backstories to people, that people might have some other story that they're telling that's not there, and their anger is just coming out. So I've been like that my whole life, but since October 7th, and since this attempt to just try to bring civility into play through EnoughTO, there is no engagement that I can move forward with. It was very difficult, and I was really shocked and surprised by just trying to share a peaceful message without any political sort of framework, and yet people coming at me and calling me a dirty Zionist or a pig or those kinds of things. And I was just dumbfounded. So I didn't really know what to take of it. It shook my moral ground. And so much of my core like shifted, I think a lot of people since October 7th don't really know their belief systems were kind of shaken to the core. And the trust that I had in people and the belief that I had in people that there was more than just what we saw in the front shifted for me. And it's been hard. That's the truth.
So how has doing this book helped? If you said it helped you because you had to find an outlet, but with terms of bridging the gap now with this book, is that part of it, or is this a separate thing because it's not bridgeable?
Oh, it's completely part of it. It allowed me to share my true feelings. As I think as you as a broadcaster know, that you have to be neutral all the time and hear both sides and understand things. And I think my approach in EnoughTO was an attempt to do that, just to hear both sides. But one side was really not wanting to engage, and the other side was just trying to share a simple message. And so with writing the poem, I felt like, you know what? I'm going to be true to what I believe in. I can't hide behind anything. This is how I feel. And one of the poems, Proof of Life, was actually my poem, and it's the title piece of the anthology, but it's only one of the 56 poems. It was an ability for me to finally say what I really felt about my pain, my frustration, and my hope for what the future would be. And so, this is just an extension of recognizing who I am today. I'm not going to be shy about, and not that I was shy about being Jewish, but I'm going to be forthright about my feelings, however they may come out. And that anthology is the vehicle for me to get that done. Everybody has it in them to speak about what they feel, and I think that's what I've learned to myself, is this not necessarily, you don't have to be on the fence. You have to speak your truth or what you feel is really inside of you, because it's the only way that you can move forward.
Do you think there is a way forward by bridging gaps? Earlier you said you were surprised by the hate you got and there was no reception to your earlier efforts to bring civility back. Now that we're a year into this, what is your thoughts about that? Is there any hope at all for civility, or not in the foreseeable future? That's
the hardest part. That pains me the most. I don't see it yet. That's the reality. I don't see it. But what I do see is a community that's grown deeper, the Jewish community, and again, there are allies out there. We hope that they continue to grow, these allies, and support us and make our community bigger. But I am shocked by this, where we are in this world. I have never, and I think everybody feels the same, never been able to see that humanity can turn such a corner. And I've not experienced the Holocaust, but certainly know very much about it. But I can't imagine a world where people have just turned so, I don't have words for what has happened here. So do I believe in a civil society and civil world right now? It's not at my grasp, but I'm going to work really hard, because I don't believe in giving up, because just to give up, there's no action there. So we have to continue to move forward. We have to create our community stronger, and we will, I believe, get through this. It will be a hard run of it, but we'll get there.
You mentioned that you're not hiding your feelings anymore as a Jew. Is there anything in this book that's not written by a Jewish person?
So it's interesting that you say this entire anthology is written by Jewish people, and we have a second anthology that is coming out for Allied Voices. So we're really excited about that. It was really important that the first volume was for Jewish people. It's our story, it's our voices that need to be heard, and they are on the pages here for everyone to read and to listen to. And now the second volume, just as important, but is all dedicated to Allied Voices and should be coming out within 3 to 5 months.
So how did you get people to buy in to do this?
Honesty. I just reached out to people. With the illustrator of the book, I saw her on Instagram, and I really liked the softness and the airiness and the calmness of her illustrations. And I thought it was a place where people could not only read the poetry, it needed visual weight, a way to just sort of take in a lot of these beautiful poems, but they were very heavy, many of them. So I knew that there was a pulse in this book that needed to be created through some visual opportunity. And so I reached out to one of the illustrator, and I said to her, this is just a project I have in mind. I have no money for this. I want all of this to go to OneFamily Fund, who is the organization that supports the hostage families. And it was really key for me that this is not a moneymaker for us personally, but if it's something that she would like to help with, and it was a no-brainer for her.
And then the people who actually wrote, give us a couple of names that people might know.
The contributors, there is not a single person who is a contributor that is of any weight or anything. These are regular people from Canada, the United States, Israel, Germany, Ireland, you name it. I didn't go after named people. There's a Holocaust survivor in here. There's a grade 11 student. There's a mother of an IDF soldier. Three children who are in the war right now. There are stories from everywhere, and so no, it's not a poetry, a book of poems by famous people or famous writers. It's just about Jewish people suffering through this time.
How is your poetry background? Can you tell us? What do you do for your day job? You're not a full-time poet, right?
No, but it's true. I did start my career in book publishing, so I worked at Random House and Penguin Books. So definitely words has been part of my life. It's always been an important sort of story arc for me in everything that I've done. And so it was a natural sort of evolution for me to go to poetry or go to my writing to deal with a lot of these emotions that I felt. The evolution of creating this book was to say that it was easy. It wasn't so much that it was easy, but it was effortless because it came from such a desire to create.
Yeah, I understand that too. It's given you purpose as well. Is there any poetry by anyone who actually has people who were killed or held hostage? Or
there's one of the poems were from a relative of a hostage family member who was released. So there's one that we have in there.
Aside from yours, is there other poem that speaks to you the most?
There is one that really does speak to me. It's called Angry. And I'd love to read it to you. I don't know if you want to put it on here, but I think it's what people feel inside, have been feeling inside. And I'm, again, back to, I've never been the type of person who's used anger as a way of expression. But so much has changed in this world that you sometimes lose a sense of yourself. So I really this spoke to me. It's called Angry by Galit Zlatowski. I feel like I want to feel angry. It's something I haven't felt in years, and this seems like the right time. I'm tired of despair, fear, and heartache. If anger is a poison, then I bet it's like whiskey, sweet, burning, invigorating, and intoxicating. A foolish thing to be consumed by, but wonderful in the moment to consume. If anger was like strychnine, how are those who hate me so much still walking? They seem strong and content with their rage, while my misery breaks me down. Let me have just one day with the liquor of fermented fear, to be stupid, vicious, and alive. I'll regret it tomorrow. I know of it. I don't care much now. I just wish to make sorrow into rage as one makes grapes into wine, just once. I'll quit after that, I swear.
I can see why. What's the reaction been now that your book is launched?
It's an outpouring of emotions. I think it really resonates with many, many people. We've had people calling me, crying, just allowing themselves to sort of feel everything that they have. It's been a very healing approach for many people. I was up on Rosh Hashanah second night at a synagogue. I was asked to speak, and I had an opportunity to speak to about 400 people in the service. And one by one, they kept on coming up to me and just giving me hugs and telling me this is what they needed, just to be able to just find some corner in the world where they can actually just mourn or cry or hug or have hope, or there's so many emotions that go through this. And the book itself is divided into themes. As it came through, I recognized that there was the themes of anger and frustration and sadness and pain, to pride and bravery of what we are as Jewish people, to finally the hope, light, and faith that will take us through this.
So the next book is with allies. What message do you hope that will give, and who's the target audience?
And again, it's early days in terms of the allied voices, so I'm reaching out to organizations to really understand what they're doing and who they're connected with. Organizations like Tafsik and that have allies that they work with closely, the Iranian communities, the Azerbaijani communities, Christian communities, and so on, and to really get to know them and understand them before I begin this journey. So it's early days, and once I unpack that a little bit more and understand how they feel, what's their perspective, and where do they feel their voices need to be, then I'll have a better sense of what it is this is going to turn out to be. Often I follow the voices. I don't direct this in any way. The poems that came for the very first volume, I had no idea I was going to divide it up in any which way until I sat with it for a bit. So we'll see. It's it's a work in progress.
Have you ever done anything like this before in your life?
No, this is I've done many different types of projects, and as I said earlier, I obviously worked in book publishing, and I've done different types of editing and things of that nature. But I do have a tendency to create different types. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, so I build a business for women entrepreneurs and helping women entrepreneurs grow. So in some ways, it's expected in some ways for me to go down this route, but at the same time, in this form, this is one of my greatest joys and my greatest accomplishments as I see it.
Well, we wish you all the best, and we're going to wait for volume 2.
Thank you very much.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily. Made possible in part by the generous support of the Ira Gluskin and Maxine Granovsky-Gluskin Charitable Foundation. And one final note. At the CJN, we believe in the critical importance of showcasing Canadian Jewish life across the country, from BC to PEI, with all of its richness and challenges and blessings. And if you're listening to this show, you probably do too. The Canadian Jewish News is now running a special promotion. Right now, sign up to receive our quarterly print magazine using the link thecjn.ca/subscribe to get an entire year of magazines completely free. That's 4 issues starting this winter, completely free. All you have to do is sign up for the magazine at thecjn.ca/subscribe to get in on this amazing promotion. That's all for today. Ellin Bessner will be back in the driver's seat in the next few days. The Daily is produced by me, Zachary Judah Kaufman. Our executive producer is Michael Freeman, and our music is by Dov Beck Levine. Thanks for listening.